Anthony, I just tore through your book. The title is From Wall Street to the White House and Back, but it's the subtitle that really got my attention. The Scaramucci Guide to Unbreakable Resilience. Totally on point. You talk in your book, Anthony, about times you've succeeded, times you failed, but most importantly, how you learn to not take things personally. And there's that fantastic quote from your grandmother, right? Give it to us in your nonna's voice.
It's funny. It's very hard to do. And so when you say don't take things personally, I'm 60 years old and Barry, and I still take things personally. So I don't want to pretend that I'm like above everybody. I'm not. I take things personally. But what I try to do is get up in the morning. I try to say, okay, today I'm not going to take things personally. Let's see if I can make it through today without taking things personally. And I think the point that my grandmother once said to me, I remember coming back from school and I was upset that I was not in a clique. This is like the third grade. So this is the 9-year-old version of me, 51 short years ago. And she said to me in her Italian dialect, basically, who cares? Who gives a what? And then she basically said that what other people think of you is none of your business. And go about your day, worry about your family, worry about the people that love you. And if someone's saying a bad thing about you in the cafeteria or someone's saying a bad thing, now it's social media, of course, who cares? Move on. And let me tell you, I needed that ammo and that fortification after I got fired from the White House. So just imagine getting blasted into, you're blown from the North Portico into Pennsylvania Avenue. You're skinned alive by the media. They roll you in salt to try to get you even more irritated. They lit me up on Saturday Night Live, not once, but probably like 5 or 6 different times. And you either laugh with it and roll with it, Ann, or you are blown to pieces. Those are your choices, right? So I'm going with I'm laughing with it and I'm rolling with it. And I think there's a big message in there, particularly for young kids. You're getting cyberbullied or someone's picking on you, or they left you out of the lunch table or whatever it might be. Who cares really, Relax into life and enjoy it. But I don't want to be a pedantic person or a sermonizer. I have problems with it to this day. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm above it. I'm right in there with everybody else, but here are some lessons that I've learned in my life that can help you be less like that.
It's funny. I almost think as though getting roasted on SNL at this point has become a badge of honor, particularly at the time that you appeared, Anthony. And I'm curious whether your life as a hedge fund manager, we are at the mercy of the markets, where there's no subjectivity. The advice your grandmother gave you was other people's subjective thoughts about you aren't your business, but the market, it's pretty black and white. It's the numbers. You can see your performance every single day. It's life in the hedge fund world. It's also the life that a retail investor, our audience at Public, lives. You see every single day where your book sits. How do you not take that personally? How do you get resilience when your performance is staring you in the face every day in numbers?
So this is a really bad thing to say, and it's really bad for your ego, but a lot of stuff is outside of your control. Okay, I got destroyed in March of 2020. And so I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, but let me tell you one big one. I walked out of a meeting in the World Economic Forum. There were 2 World Health Organization officials in the meeting. I'll set the scene for you. It was January of 2020. And I was told by those people that we had COVID under control and that this was going to be a SARS or a MERS-like experience, meaning it would be in Asia, it would be contained in Asia, and it wouldn't run havoc through the world and disrupt the lives of 4 billion people. I walked out of that meeting and I had my portfolio positioned for that. Okay, I lost, Ann. I know a lot of people fired me for this too, by the way. I lost 25% in the month of March 2020. Now, by the way, who else was in there with me? Josh Friedman was in there with me. Ray Dalio was in there. Go look at their performance. They had the exact same performance that I did because we were all in there and we all made the bet that the world was going one way and the world went completely the other way. So there's a couple of lessons in there. Number one, be humble. You don't know things. Number two, there's some certain things in life that are completely out of your control. You and I, as market participants, I don't know what the future brings. I'm hoping that we don't have an existential war in Europe. I'm hoping we don't have an invasion of Taiwan. Okay. But those are known knowns, right? Those are known unknowns, if you will. The COVID thing, to me, yes, I read about potential pandemics. Yes, we had a pandemic advisory board, even when I was inside the White House, but it wasn't real. It wasn't real. And so I guess what I would say to you is that you've got to get in your brain that there's only certain things that are in your control. And so when you lose like that, which I did lose like that, how do I get back to winning? So we did a number of things. We pivoted some of the portfolio into crypto. We pivoted the portfolio into more distressed debt, because I thought if the Fed is going to cut rates, they're going to induct that amount of money into the market to defend the economies against COVID. And we surged. We're well through our high water mark. We're probably had the best performance that we've had in my career over the last 2 years. So if you stayed with me, you did really, really well. But if but on Wall Street, you're only as good as your last trade. So we had a lot of people leave us during that moment. But you're asking the central question, and my response to you is there's only so much you can control, and you're going to get a lot wrong. And we're going to be sitting here today, and maybe my performance is great this year, knock on wood. Maybe it'll start to suck. I don't know. Okay. But if it does, then I've got to be honest with myself, and I've got to recalibrate. I watch people that go after the market, sort of like Ahab and Moby Dick, and they always lose to the whale. I would prefer to move the boat, recognizing that I'm fallible and recognizing that the market is probably smarter than me. But where I can be smarter than the market and outperform the market potentially is just by making less mistakes, right? Making less mistakes, making less transactions. That may be the best way to do this.
It's interesting. One of your tenets in your book, Anthony, and it's the title of one of your chapters, is Have Perspective. And you've just provided how you had the perspective to say, you know what, we're sitting in a hole right now, but here are some things likely to happen, like the Fed cutting rates. And you were absolutely on point. You were completely right. Perspective often comes with experience and the benefit of hindsight, and having lived through cycles. You've been investing in the market now for decades. You can say, I've seen this movie before. Looking at the cycle we're in right now, you just said you're up. You've had a really good year to date. Where are we? Are we coming to a top of a cycle? Are we about to crest? What's your instinct on where we are, given your pattern spotting?
So I think that the markets, I'm a little worried because the markets are performing well, plus 17 for the year, S&P 500, but it's a very narrow performance, and a lot of stocks are down. The 6 or 7 stocks that we often call the Magnificent Seven doing quite well, the 493 doing less well. And so I'm a little worried about the narrowness of the market. But on the flip side, I think the rate cycle is over. I do think that the Fed's next moves are going to be cutting rates. Some of that's built into the market, but a lot of that isn't. And I'll explain why. If I have adjustable rate mortgage, or if I have loans that are tied to some variability in my corporate structure, if the rates are coming down, it's going to improve my cash flow. If it improves my cash flow, it's going to create a positive flywheel of economic activity in the markets, in the global economy. So I'm actually pretty optimistic. It's very hard to knock a market down in a presidential year. And we've got some strange stuff going on in presidential politics in the United States. But I think the market ends up this year. I think you see a rate cut going into 25. And so I think the market is okay. You probably will get a widening of investment performance, meaning the 493 in the S&P 500 will do better. But I want to say something to you that I think you'll enjoy, because you're an intellect. Okay. When I was getting my what kicked, and I think there was like negative articles. I think I've had a financial obituary written about me, I think, every 6 years. I'm a high profile person. I have some bad performance. Some journalist says, okay, well, he's finally dead now. And they write this miserable article about me. Okay. So I like to journal. I'm a journalist, in the sense that I journal things. I like writing things down. Okay. And so on one of the worst days of 2022, when I actually thought I was going out of business, okay, I said, all right, let me write some things that are going well. And I put this together. Okay. And this is all the things in my life that I thought was going well, even though Morgan Stanley pulled their wire on me that I could no longer market to their clients, and Bloomberg is writing nasty articles about me and blah, blah. And I wrote a list of things that I wanted to do over the last 2 years. And it was in my desk drawer here in my vacation home. And I looked at it last night. Why am I saying this to you? When shit is going badly, get yourself together. Okay, put a gratitude list together.
What was on your gratitude? Give us one or two things on your gratitude list.
So what was on it? I just said, okay, we suck. It's obvious. Let me come up with some alternative ways to build revenues. How am I going to manage costs through this environment? Go to my friends and ask for help. And I have a list of buddies of mine in the hedge fund industry. What did Ben Franklin say, Ann? If you want a friend, ask for a favor. It's sort of like counterintuitive, but what ends up happening, you create this, flywheel of reciprocity. If I call you and I say, Ann, I need a favor, you're like, hey, I'm going to help Anthony. What do you need? And then now you feel good about yourself because you've helped me. And then all of a sudden there's more of a reciprocal dynamic in the relationship. So I went down the list. Call Mike Novogratz. Okay. Call Pete Brigger. Buddies of mine that have been 3-decade buddies who I'm going through a tough time. Give me some advice. Tell me where there's an opportunity that I could miss. Get me involved in something. Pete Brigger, God bless him, got me involved in the Mt. Gox bankruptcy. At a time where the coins were blown to pieces by FTX, and now we're going to be a recipient of these Mt. Gox Bitcoins at a much higher price than where we bought them. And if I didn't call my friend, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. You see what I'm saying? So it's never as bad as it looks at the bottom. It's obviously never as good as it looks at the top. But my point is, you got to stay in the game. You got to, no matter what the hell is going on, and if it's not a health issue, think about my ass getting fired from the White House on the 31st of July and lit up by 40 newspapers and 500 corporate media, corporate media properties, if you will. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
It's interesting. You're referring to that time as 2022. And I remember, Anthony, I saw you were referring at Davos, right? At the beginning of last year, 2023. I remember seeing you there. And I was at an event that your team hosted. And I remember it was jam-packed in Davos. Yeah. People showed up and it was, they came. I remember people coming up and asking you, how are you doing? How are things post FTX? How are things post Sam Bankman?
Yeah, and the truth is I was doing fairly shitty, but if you're a goodwill person and you have a lot of integrity, there'll always be opportunity. But it's funny because in 2023 January, the thought in Davos was Bitcoin was going to zero, and all the elites were right. And I remember coming out of Davos, and I think I told Bill Cohen from Puck, I said, Bitcoin's going up. He said, well, why are you saying that? Everybody hates Bitcoin. I said, that's exactly the reason why I'm saying that. And of course, Bitcoin went from 17,000 to 73,000. I think it's trading at like 58 or 59,000 now. But the point is, none of us are right. Okay, we're always somewhere in the middle. And dial into that frequency. I think you end up doing better.
One of your tenets also in your book, Anthony, you talk a lot about being optimistic. You talk a lot about being resilient. But the chapter I thought was really interesting was the one called Know When to Quit. So when we look at investing and we think about retail investors and folks using public, how should they know when to give up on an investment thesis and say, look, I was just wrong, or a stock pick, and say, you know what, I just need to let it go? When you've been at that point, what got you there?
So I do write about that, by the way. So that's one of my lessons. Yes, you don't want to quit, but then you need to learn when to quit. So you need to know when something is going wrong or you've got something wrong. And so I've been less quick on that because I'm like a little bit of a cockroach, and a nuclear bomb goes off and I'm going to try to survive through the rubble. So I probably wait too long. Okay, I probably wait too long on people that work for me that are not doing the job. I probably don't fire them as quickly. One of my best friends, who's one of the best entrepreneurs in the world, Jim McCann. He won the Entrepreneur of the Year award for 1-800-Flowers. He always says to me, "Don't wait. If it's not working, help the person transition, help them move into another position. Do you follow what I'm saying? And so that's a big issue. I would say to you that in an investment, I pretty much won't sell something if I think I've got the thesis right. And that was the case with Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin at 20,000. It went to 60,000. It went from 60,000 to 15,500. You guys will probably think I'm insane. I didn't sell one Bitcoin. If anything, I was incrementally buying. I participated in the Mt. Gox bankruptcy, incrementally buying the Bitcoin on the way down. Bought some at the high, bought some at the low. And we're sitting on this monster position that we've done very, very well in. And so flip side is I've also been in projects. I had to shut down a restaurant during COVID. That was very painful. I think you've been to the Hunt and Fish Club, or maybe you have. Okay. And so we own that. That's doing beautifully. And we made it through COVID. But we had another restaurant called Southern Hospitality, which was a fried chicken and barbecue place, which was a great bar crawl restaurant. Lots of fun. I think Justin Bieber was our partner. Not Justin Bieber, Timberlake. Justin Timberlake was our partner in that. And we did very well with it until COVID, and then we all made the decision to shut it down because we didn't have any outdoor dining, and we're just never going to be able to recover. And so, sometimes you have to do that in life, and you have to be willing to do that. But here's the other thing: who cares? Okay, shit happens. Who cares? You don't have a millstone of regret. That's a very bad thing to do. I don't wake up in the morning and say, wow, I made several mistakes in the White House in the summer of 2017. Let me kick myself in the pants this morning. You take the millstone of regret, you put it down, and you go forward, and you focus on what is going to happen today and where are the opportunities. So in 2022, when I was getting annihilated, okay, and I was involved with Sam, and Sam was going to jail, and we can talk about that if you want. It was very painful for me because I liked him and I trusted him, so much so that I sold him a piece of my business, right? And there he is going to jail. I'm like, oh my God. You can get disconsolate. I'm not saying that's not part of it, but you got to fight through it, and you got to also face the music. And you're a media person, okay? And I want you to imagine this. It's September of 2022, and I'm announcing on Squawk Box that Sam is buying a piece of my business. And he's on the show, and I'm on the show, and he's buying a piece of my business, and he's worth a gazillion dollars, and we're going to take his business and my business, merge them, and go off to the races.
Go to the moon, yeah.
Right. And so he's buying a third of it now, but he's going to buy the rest of it. We're going to go to the moon, right?
I remember this, yeah.
10 weeks later, I'm back on Squawk Box. You got to tell them, well, I'm pretty sure he committed fraud, and I'm pretty sure he's probably going to go out of business.
But you right, you said it out loud. You said it in
public, but I had to face the music. So 100%. So if it's going badly, face the music. Stay in it. Face the music.
You know what I remember in January of 2023, Anthony, and again, I saw you at Davos, so that would have been, a couple of months after that event. And I have this really vivid memory. We were there in Switzerland, and you said, Anne, I took Sam Bankman-Fried to some of my key relationships in the Middle East. I put my credibility behind this guy. But you said something, Anthony, that really stuck with me. You'd gone back out to the Middle East. You saw those same relationships after everything fell apart. And many of them stuck with you. And I remember you saying to me, it's because I told them the truth as soon as I knew what the truth was.
Yeah. And I'll tell a story that I have told. The president of the UAE, I have a personal relationship with him. I love him. Mohammed bin Zayed. I know him many, many years. We have a lot of mutual friends. I asked him to meet with me and Sam, and he invited us to the presidential palace, and we had a meeting with him. We sat in the mattresses, these very famous little sofas and chairs, and we must have talked for almost, maybe an hour and a half. And he was impressed with Sam. 11 days later, Sam is bankrupt. 21 days later, he's been jailed by the Bahamian authorities. Okay. Now, I'll admit this to you. It doesn't reflect well on me, but I will admit this to you. I was embarrassed to call President NBC. And I got a phone message coming in on my phone from the UAE. I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't pick it up. And it was his assistant calling from the UAE. The president would like to speak to you. Here is his personal number that you can call. And I was like, okay, I got to call him. So I called him right away. And he asked me how I was doing. Okay, I was embarrassed to call him, man. He's like, hey, are you doing okay? I've been thinking about you. I'm sorry that happened to you. And then I had to say to him, I'm really embarrassed, and I should have called you first to apologize to you for bringing Sam to the palace. Oh, relax. You think that's the first rogue figure that's walked into the palace? He was so gentle and he was so kind to me on the call. If anything, it enhanced our relationship. It didn't diminish it. But there I was in self-conscious hysteria and embarrassment, fearing to make the call to him. You see what I mean? And so sometimes in life, what you're perceiving may not be the reality of the situation. He was calling me to see how I was doing, to see if he could be helpful to me. And I was afraid he was, going to rebuke me for the embarrassment of the media exposure related to Sam being in the palace.
Anthony, I listened to that. There's the old adage, isn't there, which is you really learn someone's character in a crisis, not just the character of the person to whom the crisis is happening, but to those
question.
who are up around you. In your book,
no question.
I know you're a voracious reader. I've talked about books in the past, and I was really thrilled that you had a chapter in your book called Read Everything, and doubly thrilled that one of the books that you point at is one of my favorite books, which is Andrew Roberts' biography of Churchill. I know that you don't love English food. You make it quite clear in the book, but you do love this one past English prime minister who just came back. Teaches us so much about failure, tenacity, courage, but also the importance of knowing history. Anthony, for investors listening to you, what would you say to them about what they should read? Which book should they go pick up to learn to become a better investor so they could learn the mistakes others have made and avoid them themselves?
Yeah. So you actually sent me an email last night. I've been ruminating about this for the last 12 hours about that book or a book. And so the best book for me is from Charlie Munger. And it's his almanac. And so Charlie Munger wrote a book that Warren Buffett loves, and that is sold at the Berkshire Hathaway events. It's called Poor Charlie's Almanac: The Essential Wit and Wisdom of Charles T. Munger, who he believes that he is the reincarnation. He's now deceased. He died a beautiful life. He died at age 99. But he believes, and I probably believe it too, that he is the reincarnation of Ben Franklin. And this wit that he has, but also the temperance. And I think I'll summarize the book for our viewers and listeners. And I would say three things about the book. Number one, reduce your mistakes, which also means reduce your transactions and the transaction costs and the friction in the marketplace. Number two, don't take yourself that seriously. Okay. You are going to meet your maker. You are in a time capsule, or in the words of the American comedian Mel Brooks, relax. None of us are getting out of here alive. So don't take yourself that seriously. Right. And then the third thing that Mr. Munger would say to you is do the homework. Do the homework. And the market, there may be a madness to crowds, but there's also a wisdom to crowds. The market is the collective wisdom of all of its participants. So the market could be telling you something. Yes, it could get euphoric and you might be in a bubble, but it could also be telling you, wow, there's a lot of technology out there where the world is really changing. And maybe there's time for me to embrace some of this technology. And maybe there's a time for me to, be okay with accepting that change. It again doesn't reflect well on me, but it took me 20 minutes to log into this podcast, log into this interview. Okay. And I'm like, I got to get up to speed on this shit. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Next time,
Okay.
Next
okay. I also want to admit to people that for about 5 years, I didn't even know how to use Instagram. Okay. But now I'm in Instagram mode. I'm trying to figure out a way to to use Instagram. I'm embarrassed about this, but Munger would say to you, you have to embrace these technologies. Now, Munger hated Bitcoin, but he was also 90 when he started learning about Bitcoin. And I think if Munger had been 40 when he looked at Bitcoin, and because of his understanding of the history of money and because of his view about what money is, which is effectively a database among all of us, this is a fairly perfect, decentralized, open-sourced, impregnable database. And I think it has properties, technical properties, that the world has always searched for in terms of how we would view money. And it's certainly impervious to central banking authority. And I think we've been drunk drivers in our fiat currencies. And so Bitcoin represents an AA clinic for central banking drunk driving, Alcoholics Anonymous.
That's a big statement, Anthony. We're going to have you back. That's a big statement around how Bitcoin can remediate some of the actions that the Fed.
I think over time it'll become a check. As it rises in value, it'll become a check on things.
I can't let you go, Anthony, without just taking 1 minute of your time on the White House piece of the title of your book. As you said, you were there for 11 days, but you're out there a lot. You're talking about what a new White House could look like. And there's some speculation that trades are already being placed in the market. There are essentially bets on who's going to be in the White House next. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing that? What are those trades looking like?
Yeah, well, listen, we're talking midsummer 2024. It is Donald Trump's race to lose at this point. He's in the pole position. The race looks roughly tied on a national level. So that's actually very bad for the Democrats because Donald Trump lost the popular vote in 2016. He lost the popular vote in 2020. And so that the notion that the race is tied on a national level, very, very bad for Democrats. And Trump is ahead in a lot of these swing states. And Joe Biden, unfortunately, at age 81, his incoherent debate makes people think, well, it's not going to get better from 81 into 82 and 83. And even though there's only 3 years of age difference between these two men, Donald Trump presents younger, Joe Biden presents older. So if you don't like Trump and you think Trump's a liar, whatever, Americans will choose a strong liar over weak competency if you assume Biden is competent. If you don't think he's competent and he's aging, it's even worse. Do you see what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. If the Democrats do something bold, though, Ann, and they say, okay, we're going to take a powder on Joe Biden, we're going to put up younger candidates, it's an interesting theory because Democrats always do better with younger candidates. Barack Obama challenging John McCain, the Vietnam veteran, and the age-old senator, the American patriot. He's challenged by the African-American 47-year-old, and Barack Obama bests him. Bill Clinton, a baby boomer, challenging the greatest generation, a World War II hero and a sitting president, he beats him. So they do better. Jack Kennedy, sitting vice president, 43-year-old young senator, he beats him. So we'll have to see if they go in that direction. If they leave Biden in the race, I think Trump will beat him. And then it'll bring its own series of issues, some of them related to what happens to NATO, some of what happens to the Ukraine. There's some things about what Mr. Trump wants to do, which I don't agree with. There are pro-business policies, but there's also heavy tariffs. And so we'll have to see what happens. But I don't want to leave on a negative thought, but I will say this to you. We have a debt crisis looming. We went from George Washington to George W. Bush, $7 trillion. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, $28 trillion. We have a $35 trillion hole in our balance sheet. It's not unresolvable. It is fixable, but we can't wait. We can't wait. And so I'll leave you on that. We'll leave you on that thought. We got to get the politicians that are going to talk honestly to the people and offer some long-term solutions. And these two candidates don't represent that, frankly. And hopefully there'll be a new crop of younger people going forward for America.
I think I'm hearing, Anthony, that we may see you on the stomping ground.
No, 21
years from now.
Girlfriend, you've met my wife, okay? I'm running for re-election in my marriage, okay? Just trying to stay married.
So thank you very much for joining. Appreciate it.
Good to be on with you.